Good morning. Hey, here we are with Monday Morning Motivation. I want to see how many brave souls we have that are up this morning that don't have to be to work. Take just a moment here, okay? All right, while we're waiting, uh, just a great movie. You already know the movie that I'm probably going to say that's been out even less than a week in our area has been the Black Panther. What do you think about it? OMG. Good morning, Mr. Gates. How are you? Glad to have you on this morning. I was just saying, I wonder how many brave souls are going to join us this morning that don't have to be to work. But OMG, what an incredible movie. Talk about motivation. That was at the top of my list, or one of the things at the top of my list for this week in terms of motivation and being able to take some great nuggets from that. So I take from things fiction and nonfiction, but that was a great movie, and I'm looking forward to applying some of those things to my life. Okay. So we're going to move forward with the people that we have here this morning. I'm so excited to talk about the topic that we have today, which is dealing with our emotions or dealing with conflict and how it's critical to deal with those things in terms of our success. But before we do that, it's important, and let's go back to review some of the things that we talked about last week, okay? So last week was all about the big tool that we had. We talked about the tool of being able to organize multiple things and multiple goals in our life, okay? So that tool, let's talk about the benefit of that tool, or review the benefit that we talked about. That tool that helps me set in motion the things that are important to me, those three things, and what are they? Faith, family, and purpose, okay? So that tool helps you, again, to set on autopilot those things that are recurring in your life, that binder that I showed last week, so you don't have to worry about them, so that you don't have to use up space in your brain and use up brain power to focus on those things. So things that are recurring, your bills, or things that you clean on a regular basis, things that go on at work, you already have those things set on autopilot. And the second thing is that it helps you focus clearly on your purpose. So that activities that you have going, good morning, sir, Mr. Grimes, and we know we have others watching. It helps you set it in motion based on the activities that you place in that binder, your purpose, okay? So those are the two things. It's a great tool. Let's use it, okay? All right, now let's moving forward. I want to make a note about the post that I make on Sunday night. So those that see the post on Sunday night know that around 8 p.m. on every Sunday, prior to meeting with you on Monday Morning Motivation, that I make a post about what we'll be discussing the next day, okay? And I want to use that as kind of like a preview, if you will, or a way for us to preheat the conversation that we're going to have on Monday mornings. So begin adding your comments, add maybe some questions that you have, maybe some curious comments that you have, some thought-provoking things that will kind of get some conversation going and to preheat our conversation for Monday morning. But the post that we saw on yesterday, you saw two individuals. You saw two fictional characters, right? You saw the Incredible Hulk and you saw Master Yoda. So why choosing those two creatures? I believe that they represent two sides of the spectrum, two opposite ends of the spectrums. You have one that is fueled by rage, fueled by anger, if you will. You have one that's fueled by positivity and wisdom. And it's amazing when you look at both of these creatures and you look at the stories that they're a part of. Both of them experience loss. Both of them have enemies. Both of them experience death around them. They really experience a lot of the same things, but they handle them in totally different ways. They have completely different perspectives. If you look at Star Wars, you're going to get something different than if you're looking at the Avengers and the Incredible Hulk. But they still have the same outcome, right? But let's talk or dig a little deeper into that. So when we look at ourselves, there's really no difference between these two individuals. We all as humans go through a lot of common things. we have a lot of issues or go through some of the same things that impact us in the same way. Death, life, marriage, the birth of a child, the loss of assets or personal belongings. We go through these different things in our lives, but what's the difference? We all respond to them differently. Now, in some ways, that's very positive because we all have our individuality, correct? But in other ways, there are a lot of negative aspects to the different responses that we have. And so this morning, I want to focus in on those negative responses that ultimately come to hinder our purpose. So as we talk about this conflict, as you will listen in, there are really two components that I want to talk about, and the latter of the two is what we'll focus on today. So anytime you have two or more people that are working together on a regular basis, you're going to experience conflict. Conflict is inevitable. It doesn't matter the age difference. It doesn't matter the gender difference. It doesn't matter if you agree on 99.9% of things. When you work with someone or some other people on a consistent basis, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be turmoil. So there are two components to the conflict that I want to mention. One is external conflict. External conflict is a conflict that occurs or happens when you deal with other people. So I'm on a basketball court and I'm dribbling and going up for the layup, and I get fouled. Now I'm probably going to respond in an external way. I'm probably going to speak or say something verbally, and I may do something physically, depending on the situation. And so that's external conflict. That's something that is verbal, and that's also something that is visual or physical as well. And then there's a second form that I want to speak about, and that is internal conflict. That's where we're going to be spending our time today. Now, let me delineate something here, or let me make mention of something. I'm not talking about conflict resolution in the way that we've always talked about it. There would be no need for me making this video if I was going to share with you about conflict resolution the way that we've all heard about it in the workforce or that we've heard about it in school. So let's listen with different ears. So the internal conflict is something that is unspoken. But as we know and as we've learned, just because something is unspoken does not mean that it's unseen or that it goes unnoticed, okay? And here's what I mean by that. You wake up in the morning and you've been telling your kids about these new habits that you want them to have for the past year. You've been telling them, when you wake up, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go straight into the bathroom, wash your face, brush your teeth, come back, make up your bed, and do X, Y, and Z. And so by the time it's ready to leave, that you're ready to leave and we're ready to go out. And so you've been telling them this and coaching them on this for a year. And you get over into February, almost March of 2018, and they're still doing the same thing. So you're frustrated and you're fuming and you're fussing at them all the way to school, and then you drop them off and you speed off and you're on the way to work, and guess what? You walk inside the doors to work and the frustration is all over your face. Though you're not speaking about the internal conflict that you're having on the inside, it's evident, it's visible. Because it's visible in your facial expressions, it's visible in your body language, you're fuming, your temperature's going up, you're breathing heavier, your face is contorted, all these different things are happening. And then those that learn about communication, the most important part about communication is not what's being said, it's not the verbal part of it, it's the nonverbal cues or the body language. So our body language makes up for the most important part of communication. So if we're not dealing with internal conflict, then we're missing a huge area of opportunity in our lives that needs to be fixed, okay? So how does internal conflict deal with us? So we all deal with conflict. So we know that conflict is not the issue. The issue is the fact that we have unresolved conflict. We're dealing with the same situations over and over again, time and time again, but we're not resolving them. So let's talk through that, the resolve or the resolution. So let's say I'm a person, and let me back up and say this. What goes into internal conflict? Our experiences that we go through in life, the way that we were raised, and also our belief system, how we believe we should go about life, our philosophy in terms of dealing with other people and dealing with circumstances and happenings. All of that goes into the reason we have internal conflict. Okay? So, for example, one profile of a person can be someone that's a nice person. This is someone that's been nice all their life. Maybe they've been called a pushover. Perhaps they've been taken advantage of time and time again. And they finally got to a point in their life where they were fed up and they said, you know what? No more. I'm not going to take it anymore. And the next person that comes against me, or the next person that tries to take advantage of me, is going to get it. That affects the way you deal with conflict. That affects the way you deal with conflict. Another person, perhaps in the past you've dealt with conflict wrongly, and you have guilt with the way that you treated other people and the way that you treated situations. So you say, you know what? I'm just going to hold my tongue. It's better to hold my tongue, because if I don't hold my tongue, somebody's going to get hurt. If I don't hold myself back, someone's going to get hurt. And so you hold your tongue and you hold back and you decide to say, you know, everything blows over. I'm just going to let this pass. That too affects the way that you deal with conflict. So you have both ends of the spectrum. You have someone that's been taken advantage of, that decides no more, I'm not going to be taken advantage of anymore. And then you have someone that started out kind of brash, and they did things the wrong way, and they said, you know what, the world is a happier place if I just hold my tongue. Okay? Both affect the way that you deal with conflict. And so when we're dealing with conflict, it's important to know that what we're going through affects that conflict. So why you may be saying, you know, hey, why is this important to deal with this conflict? And I'm going to give you some things in terms of conflict. Here's the danger of not resolving internal conflict. The danger of not resolving internal conflict is that it brings up other emotions, or it causes a lack of self-control, which can ultimately lead to external conflict. So let's say I'm in a place of work and I feel that someone is undermining my intelligence. They're coming against my intelligence. They're coming against my ability to be prepared, to show up, to do my job effectively and efficiently, to do what I've been paid to do. And they do that over and over and over again, to the point that, you know what, I've reached my limit. I've reached my breaking point. I've tapped out. And so what happens? I decide to let self-control go out of the window, and it moves from a place of internal conflict to a point of external conflict. And as I just mentioned, that external conflict is going to be verbal. You're either going to say something to address that situation to the person, or it's going to get physical, or both. And you don't want to get physical. You don't want to get verbal outside of the confounds of self-control in any relationship, in any place in the workforce, volunteerism, what have you. You don't want to go to that point. The second thing is you hinder your opportunities for other people to help you. And here's what I mean by that. So you have internal conflict, and you're wearing it on your face, and it causes you to lose self-control, and it causes you to act out in a way that's outside of your character. And the people around you open up doors. People around you introduce you to other opportunities. Now, I've done this in my life before. I've had other people that they wanted to do other things, either professionally, or maybe they wanted to meet a particular person to present an idea that was on their mind. But I tell you, if they messed up that opportunity, or if I messed up opportunities with other people, then clearly they're not going to open up those doors. They're not going to open up those opportunities for me to meet with other people or to do things. And you may say, so what? You know, I'm just going to be the person that I am. You're going to make your road to success a lot harder by not keeping those contacts or keeping those relationships open with people if you don't control execute self-control, if you don't control that internal or deal with that internal conflict. And the last thing is, if you don't resolve internal conflict, you're going to deal with the same situations over and over again. What do I mean by that? Have you ever asked yourself this or ever said this? You know what? I don't mess with anybody. I keep to myself. But somebody always finds a way to bother me. I always find a way to get frustrated. I always find ways of being rejected. What is this thing? I'm not doing anything to anybody. Well, you may not be doing anything to anybody, but guess what? You're also not doing. There are things that are going on internally that you have not resolved. There are things going on internally that you have not resolved. And the reason these things continue to happen is because you have not taken the time and input the time to learn that lesson and get past it. Okay? So this begs the question, how do we deal with internal conflict? Okay? Now I'm going to take this moment to say that there's a part B to this that I'm not going to get to today. And it's strategic because there's some things that we need to do first before I jump in and start throwing in some resolutions. But I am going to give you some points that will be helpful. The first thing that I want you to do, and this is where you take your pad and pen out and write these things down, okay? These are some action items. First thing I want you to do is take account of the situations that bring up negative emotions, okay? So X happened, with my children. X happened with my spouse. X happened with my boss. X happened with my coworker, or with another volunteer that brought up this anger. So in other words, you're taking account of how you feel. A lot of us go through life and we're not even concerned with how we feel. We don't know how we feel. People may say, hey, what's wrong with you? Or why is your face, what's going on with your face? Fix your face. And we say, nothing's wrong. So we're not even aware of what's going on inside of us because we're focusing on other things. So we first got to stop and take inventory of the things that are going on in our life. We got to keep track of those negative emotions and begin to write down when we're out of sync, okay? The second thing is I want you to name the emotion. So when X did this, it made me feel this way. When my coworker tried to tell me to do something or tried to reteach me on something that I already knew, I felt undermined. I felt that my intelligence was undermined. Or when the customer decided, hey, no, I don't want that product. No, I don't want that service. I already have someone that provides this for me. Or when a door of opportunity is shut in your face, why do you feel rejected? Why do you internalize that rejection? Okay, so write down the happening and then write down the emotion. And then the third and final thing is I want you to write down why this is even important. Write down why the emotion, why is this emotion a big deal to you? Why is it such a big deal to feel undermined? Why is it such a big deal to feel rejected? Why is it such a big deal to feel belittled? And what I mean by that is as you go back to on the path of discovery, you may find that there are some things in your childhood. You may find that there were some major things that have happened in your life that ultimately stem from that. Go back to what I said to the first person profile. This was a person that's been nice all their life, that they've been taken advantage of, and they decided at a certain point, no more. This is where I draw the line in the sand. And so for that person, that may be the importance of why they act out or why they have this internal conflict when someone tries to take advantage of them. Okay? So do that. Go back, review these things, and take inventory the rest of this week. Write down those emotions, name those emotions, and write down why those things bother you so much, or why it's important to you that those things come up as internal conflict. Okay, one more important point. Next week, I will start at 6:45 a.m. Next week, I will start at 6:45 a.m. No, I'm not mashing the snooze button. I've just got something really important that I need to take care of that will not be changed, okay? And so I need you guys to meet me here next Monday at 6:45 a.m., okay? until as a preview for next week. So what we're talking about, we're still talking about the conflict, and we're still talking about ways to navigate, but we're talking about redirecting those negative thoughts and actions. Redirecting those negative thoughts and actions. So meet me here next week, and you guys have a great Monday. Take care.